I am now live, I am now loud, and I am now proud once again on my podcast here on my YouTube channel. As always, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on minds.com, and all three of those locations, you can find me with the handle SC Britton, Britton. Over on Facebook, you can find me with the page Steve Speaks Freely. And it's great to be here. And to all intelligent life forms everywhere, and to everyone else out there, the secret is, of course, to bang those rocks together, guys. Let's start by talking a little bit about the whole thing regarding Justin Trudeau, Canada's resident minister, who lives in Ottawa and is the son of arguably one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. The only thing about Justin Trudeau that I will say is that he's worse. Justin Trudeau has by far the worst prime minister we have ever had. For no other reason, for this, and that is regarding ISIS. Justin Trudeau is the prime minister who campaigned on, promised to pull our jet fighters out of Syria and Iraq, ISIS-controlled territory, and promised to focus more on humanitarian efforts and training local ground fighters. ISIS is a clear and present danger. Thank God Donald Trump sent in and has beaten them back to the Stone Age where they belong. No thanks to us here in Canada. But that is the way things are. So, the latest is the opposition, Conservatives, under the leadership of Andrew Scheer, have been ripping continuously on Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government for their treatment. And they recently forced Public Safety Minister, I think it is Ralph Goodale, I believe that is, to finally admit there are 60 ISIS fighters here, 60 terrorists. When asked about this, Justin Trudeau went on some talking points thing where he actually read these lofty goals, reintegrating and I don't know what you would call it, but engaging terrorists to reintegrate them into Canadian society. These guys are terrorists. If they are Canadian citizens, they left the country to fight against the country and our way of life. These people do not deserve to be reintegrated back into Canadian society. Frankly, if you go to fight with ISIS, you are betraying everything that you were raised to be as a Canadian citizen. You should have your citizen stripped from you. And if you are a dual citizen or not, you should lose your Canadian citizenship. And if that's a stateless person, that is not our problem. Now, some of you may go on a bit of an attack against me for saying that I opposed this provision of the Conservatives' bill to strip citizenship from dual citizens. And that is right. I did oppose that, and I still do. But I never said anything about not stripping Canadian citizenship at all. All I said is that it was wrong to apply it to dual citizens because it creates a two-tier citizenship system. If you have dual citizenship, you can lose your Canadian. If you don't, you can't. That's wrong. But if you go to fight ISIS, I don't give a rat's ass if you're dual citizen or not. You should lose your Canadian citizenship. You made your bed, you can sleep in it. So that a senior British minister, I'm reading from the Toronto Star, this is of all places, a senior British minister controversially said last month that the only way to deal with returning Daesh fighters is to kill them. Yeah, is that controversial? Is that really that controversial? If you're fighting war against the country, yeah, war means you're shooting at people. You're trying to kill people. That is what war is. Sorry, guys. When it comes to ISIS, If you find a confirmed ISIS pocket of stop, we're the allies. In other words, you shoot first and tell them to put their guns down later. There is no compromising, no discussions, no arguing with terrorists, especially ISIS. These are people who set other people on fire. These are people who crucify Christians for sport. These are people who have thrown men off tall buildings for the simple crime of being homosexual. And isn't it ironic that Canada and the United States left wing is supportive of the kind of people who do these atrocities? The other thing, of course, they do is they sell women into slavery and they cut off their genitals. Why? Because they can. That's why. That is what ISIS. Now, ISIS is different from the concept and the belief system of Islam. I want to make that clear. I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about ISIS. And I am with most Muslims in my criticisms of ISIS. Most Muslims can't stand ISIS either. So just want to put that out there as well. There is a myth, and this is the type of hole that no wall would fix. This is a Liberal Party of Canada-sized wall, or hole rather. This is a Liberal Party. That metaphor would have worked a lot better if I hadn't screwed it up. This is a Liberal to be filled. Justin Trudeau is an embarrassment to Canada. He is an embarrassment to Canadians, and he makes Canada a laughingstock on the world stage. And if you voted Liberal, I really seriously hope that you regret it today. And if you don't regret it, how can you sleep at night? All right. Part 1, done. That's the whole thing I wanted to go on and on and on about regarding Justin Trudeau, the worst prime minister that we have ever had, including his father. Now, the second thing I wanted to bring up and mention and discuss here was the whole Debacle University. And to think, at one point in my own personal history, I actually applied to go there. Now, I changed my application and I pulled Wilfrid Laurier off my application and replaced it with UWO. And thank God I did, because I would not want to be an alumnus of Wilfrid Laurier today. Not after this. Now, to give you a very brief backstory, a teaching assistant and graduate student named Lindsay Shepherd was teaching a part of the discussion in the class. She brought in and used a very brief clip from a debate featuring he's controversial. Whether he's right or wrong here is irrelevant. But this is a debate which Jordan Peterson was involved with, and he was talking about his decision not to use these so-called new gender pronouns and the sort. And the discussion, it was a brief clip. It was available on public television. This was a debate on TVO, which is TV Ontario, and it was hosted by well-known moderate and professional moderator Stephen Paikin. And so she presented this to the class, and a few days or whatever it was later, she got hauled into her professor's office. And she sat before a group of 3 people, her professor and another fellow that was there with her, acting, who was it here? I'm pulling up the articles. And the articles are all available in the description below as well. So she pulled up, so she was pulled into this meeting, and the third person was the acting manager of the Gendered Violence Prevention and Support Program. Adria Joel was the acting manager of that. So she was in this meeting with Professor Nathan Rambukkana, Herbert Pimlott, and this Adria Joel person. And they gave her this dressing down for creating a toxic environment in class. And her professor even went so far as to liken her presenting this clip from this debate to presenting a speech by Adolf Hitler from a neutral context. Now, that is, first of all, the most absurd thing I have ever heard. And second of all, it just shows you the level to which these social justice nutjobs will stoop. And they accused her of creating a toxic environment in class. They said that using this clip was violent and unsafe to transgender students. They wouldn't tell her who or how many students actually complained about this. A debate between two people presenting both sides of an issue. Now, since then, what they didn't know is that she secretly recorded this meeting. The university initially tried to hide behind confidentiality, but in doing so, they didn't realize that she recorded it. She released the recording. It went viral, as it should have. And now the university and a professor have apologized. And as Christy Blatchford writes in the National Post, you know where they can stick their apology. Because their apology does not admit one fundamental thing. The fact that she was not out of line to do what she did. They apologized for their method of handling it, where they should have apologized for handling it at all. I think the university, Wilfrid Laurier University, should be defunded. I think the professor should lose his tenure and be removed from the university for this, because he is pushing a social justice agenda. Now, he has a right to his opinions. He has a right to express them. That's all fine and good. But the way he treated Lindsay Shepherd is unconscionable and deplorable. And for that reason, not for his beliefs, but for how he handled the situation which arose, he should be removed from his office. There is also a Queen's professor who sent out a tweet yesterday, and I'm going to see if I can pull it up here on my Twitter feed. He tweeted, this is Alan W. Gregory, who is a Queen's University professor of economics at Queen's University. So he should actually, you think that he's an intelligent man. And one of the things that we have to remember to do is never assign malice to something which can be explained away with stupidity. And unfortunately, in this case, I cannot explain this away with stupidity. This is not stupid. This is targeted. And what Alan W. Gregory says is, stop thinking Peterson is just offering another view that ought to be heard. To avoid that kind of thing at university, and he goes on to say, if your views are bigoted, anti-transgender, then do not look to universities to support such nonsense. First of all, if you're transgender, you're going from male to female. You're not going from him to jar, or whatever the term is nowadays. You're going either from male to female or female to male. Two genders. Male, female. If you're a hermaphrodite or whatever the intersex, that's a different thing. But you're still showing traits of two genders. All this gender fluidity, that's confusion, my friends. And that's not a bigoted position. That's an opinion. It doesn't mean I think anything any less or any more of transgender people. All it means is that I see that there are two genders, male and female. And Jordan Peterson is not refusing to, he's basically saying that he's going to refer to someone by the gender that they advertise. If you're dressed and you behave like a man and you look like a man, you are a man. And he will call you he. If you're dressed and you act like a female, like, for example, Blair White, who is a trans woman, she was a man and now she's a woman, I refer to Blair White as she, because Blair White looks, acts, and comes across to me as female. And that is not because Blair White has Y chromosomes in her body. She does. But it's because she behaves, she acts, and she looks like a female. And so she deserves to be called she. And that's just the way it is. So, I think anybody who supports the position of punishing people for expressing a viewpoint regardless of what that viewpoint is, they themselves deserve some form of reprimand or sanction for doing so. Because presenting an opinion is actually protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And if you violate that, you are violating the Constitution. And if you punish someone for expressing themselves, you are violating the Canada. Now, this does not apply to direct and overt calls to violence, of course. This applies simply to expressing opinions, like I am doing right now, like Lindsay Shepherd did by presenting the video of Jordan Peterson, and like many other people do, and many other people have been attacked physically, violently, and had their lives threatened, had their livelihoods threatened for doing so. And that, my friends, is wrong. And that is why I do this show. And that's it. So, I've really gone on a rampage today. If you like what you see, please do consider supporting me over on Patreon and or on minds.com. SC Britain. You can find me over there. You can also find me on Twitter, SC Britain, and you can find me on Facebook, Steve Speaks Freely. So that's it, and I'm gonna disconnect now. So I wish you all the best, and I'll